The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. The Federation was built on the certainty that reason, science, and cooperation could overcome any challenge. Replicators eliminated hunger. Warp drive conquered distance. The Prime Directive ensured respect for all life. But what happens when something enters our reality that was forged in a universe where different rules apply? When a being appears whose entire existence is predicated on a philosophy that our greatest achievements were designed to disprove? Deep Space Nine hung in the darkness like a steel flower, its docking pylons extended toward the planet Bajorans below. The station hummed with controlled chaos. Wounded ships limping in from the front lines, emergency medical transports rushing trauma cases to the infirmary, tactical officers analyzing battle reports from 3 different sectors. The Dominion War had been grinding on for months, a brutal conflict that challenged everything the Federation claimed to stand for. Captain Benjamin Sisko stood on the promenade, watching Bajoran civilians hurry past, their faces tight with the knowledge that neutrality was a fragile shield. "Captain to Ops." Kira's voice crackled through his comm badge, sharp with urgency. "We're detecting an anomaly in the wormhole. It's opening." Sisko tapped his badge without breaking stride toward the turbolift. "On my way." "What kind of anomaly?" "Unknown." There was a pause, and when Kira spoke again, her voice carried an edge of something Sisko rarely heard from his first officer: uncertainty. "The Prophets aren't responding to any of our attempts at communication. Whatever's coming through, they're not talking about it." The turbolift deposited him in Ops 30 seconds later. The circular nerve center of Deep Space Nine was alive with activity. Kira stood at her station, her Bajoran features illuminated by scrolling data. Worfman Tactical, his Klingon discipline focused entirely on the threat assessment displays. Dax worked at science, her hands moving across controls with practiced grace. Chief O'Brien was already rerouting power to the shields, anticipating Sisko's order before it came. "Report," Sisko commanded, moving to the central console. Dax looked up from her instruments, and her centuries of accumulated wisdom through 8 lifetimes couldn't mask the confusion in her eyes. "Benjamin, the wormhole is exhibiting energy patterns we've never seen before. Verterium particle emissions are off the scale. Whatever's coming through is massive, at least the size of a Jem'Hadar battlecruiser." "Weapon status?" Sisko asked Worf. "Shields at maximum. Weapons armed and targeting the wormhole aperture." Worf's growl carried professional readiness. "Shall I hail the approaching vessel?" "Not yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first." Sisko watched the main view screen as the wormhole bloomed into existence, that familiar flower of blue and white light that connected the Alpha Quadrant to the distant Gamma Quadrant. Except this time, something was different. The edges flickered with colors that shouldn't exist, deep purples that hurt to look at, flashes of energy that made the air in Ops taste like ozone and copper. "Energy signature emerging," Dax reported. "It's..." "Benjamin, I'm reading exotic particles that don't match anything in our database. Chronometric distortions. Subspace fractures. It's like reality itself is bending around whatever this is." The wormhole contracted violently, and something shot through, not a ship, but a figure, tumbling through space in a corona of purple energy. The view screen automatically magnified, and Sisko felt his breath catch. It was humanoid but massive. Easily 8 feet tall, even accounting for the armor that covered its body. The being's skin was a deep purple, ridged and scarred like ancient stone. But what held Sisko's attention was the gauntlet on the figure's left hand, studded with what appeared to be gems that pulsed with impossible light. One stone, purple, matching the energy discharge, flared with power as the figure oriented itself in the void, slowing its trajectory through sheer force of will. "Mother of the Prophets," Kira whispered. "Shields holding," Worf reported. "But Captain, those energy readings, if that being were to direct that power at the station..." "I'm detecting a second stone," Dax interrupted. "Blue spectrum. The energy signature matches nothing in Federation records, but the power output, She looked up at Sisko. Benjamin, each of those stones is generating more power than a Galaxy-class starship's warp core. The being turned in space, and even through the viewscreen, Sisko could see the intelligence in those eyes, ancient, calculating, and utterly alien. The figure raised its gauntlet, and for a moment Sisko thought they were about to be attacked. Instead, a shimmer of blue energy surrounded the being, and it vanished. "Transporter signature!" O'Brien shouted. "Unauthorized materialization on the promenade, lower level!" Alarms shrieked across ops. Sisko was already moving toward the turbolift. "Worf, security teams to the promenade. Dax, keep scanning that energy signature. Chief, I want a containment field ready in case we need it. Kira, evacuate all civilians from the promenade and seal the area. Benjamin, wait." Dax called out, but Sisko was already in the turbolift. "I'm not waiting for an armed intruder to start making demands," he said. "If this being wanted us destroyed, we'd already be dead. It came here deliberately. I need to know why." The turbolift descended, and Sisko's mind raced. The prophets, the wormhole aliens that Bajorans worshipped as gods, had always controlled access to the wormhole. They existed outside linear time, perceiving past, present, and future simultaneously. They had chosen Sisko as their emissary, their bridge to corporeal beings. But they hadn't warned him about this. They hadn't opened the wormhole for scheduled transit. Whatever had come through had either forced its way past them or been allowed through for reasons Sisko couldn't begin to fathom. The turbolift doors opened onto Case. Bajoran civilians were fleeing in all directions as security officers established a perimeter. In the center of the promenade, standing before the sealed entrance to a Balian barbershop, was the being from space. Up close, it was even more imposing. The armor was battle-scarred, ancient, inscribed with symbols in no language Sisko recognized. The being stood perfectly still, surveying its surroundings with the calm of someone who had walked onto 1,000 battlefields and emerged victorious from every one. The gauntlet glowed softly, the purple and blue stones pulsing in rhythm with some cosmic heartbeat. Sisko stepped forward, hands visible and empty, Starfleet training and diplomatic instinct warring with every survival impulse screaming at him to run. Odo materialized beside him, the changeling security chief having shifted through the station's infrastructure to reach the scene. "Captain," Odo said quietly, "that being just transported through our shields without triggering a single alarm. Whatever technology it's using." "I know, Constable." Sisko kept his eyes on the intruder. "Let me handle this." He took another step forward and spoke in the calm, measured tone he'd used for first-contact situations across 2 decades of Starfleet service. "I am Captain Benjamin Sisko, commanding officer of this station. You've entered Federation space without authorization. I'm asking you peacefully, identify yourself and state your purpose." The being's eyes focused on Sisko, and the weight of that gaze was like standing before an avalanche a moment before it fell. When it spoke, its voice was deep, resonant, and carried the certainty of someone who had never been denied. "I am Thanos of Titan. I have come from a dying universe, through the temple of the beings you call prophets, seeking what this reality possesses." The being, Thanos, raised the gauntlet hand slightly. "I carry the Power Stone and the Space Stone. In my universe, they granted me dominion over matter and distance. Here." He clenched his fist, and purple energy crackled across his knuckles. "Here they are wounded. Diminished. But they will adapt." Sisko felt every security officer on the promenade tense. Odo shifted his stance, ready to change form at a moment's notice. But Sisko held up a hand, keeping everyone still. "You came through the Bajoran wormhole," Sisko said carefully. "The beings inside, the prophets, they exist outside normal space and time. They don't allow passage to anyone unless they choose to," Thanos finished. "I did not ask permission, Captain. I tore open the barrier between realities and your prophets." He paused, and something that might have been respect crossed his features. "They did not stop me. They watched. They permitted my passage. Perhaps they understand what I have come to learn. And what is that? Thanos took a single step forward. Every phaser rifle on the promenade swung toward him. He ignored them all, his attention fixed solely on Sisko. Whether balance can exist in a universe that believes it has conquered scarcity. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The conference room on Deep Space Nine had hosted countless negotiations, Bajoran provisional government meetings, trade disputes with Ferengi merchants, tense diplomatic exchanges with Cardassian officials during the occupation's bitter aftermath. But it had never contained anything quite like Thanos of Titan. The Mad Titan sat at the far end of the table, his massive frame making the standard-issue Starfleet chair look like a child's toy. He hadn't removed the gauntlet, and the two Infinity Stones continued their soft pulsing, casting purple and blue shadows across the bulkheads. Sisko sat opposite him, flanked by Kira and Dax. Worf stood near the door, hand resting near his phaser, while Odo had positioned himself in the corner, the changeling's liquid form allowing him to respond to threats faster than any solid security officer. "You're not what I expected," Thanos said, breaking the silence. His voice carried the weight of centuries, each word chosen with deliberate care. "When I breached the threshold between realities, I anticipated resistance. Weapons. Fear. Instead, you invite me to speak. First contact protocol," Sisko replied. "The Federation was founded on the principle that most conflicts arise from misunderstanding. We talk first." He leaned forward slightly. "But make no mistake. My security chief has 17 ways to contain you if this conversation goes badly, and I've got a Galaxy-class starship en route that can level this entire section of the station if necessary." A smile ghosted across Thanos' features, brief, appreciative. "Honesty. I respect that, Captain." "Very well. You wish to understand why I am here. The answer is simple." He raised the gauntlet, and the stones flared brighter. "In my universe, I possess 6 Infinity Stones. Together, they granted absolute power over reality itself. I used that power to bring balance, to cull half of all life in the universe so that the remaining half might thrive with sufficient resources." Kira's hand moved toward her phaser. Dax's expression hardened into something ancient and dangerous. Even Sisko felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice level. "You committed genocide on a universal scale. I saved a universe from inevitable collapse," Thanos corrected, no defensiveness in his tone, only the certainty of a mathematician stating an equation. "Every civilization follows the same pattern, Captain. Expansion. Consumption. Depletion. Collapse. I saw it happen on my own world. Titan was a paradise once, advanced, enlightened, prosperous. I warned the High Council that our population growth was unsustainable. They called me a madman. Within a generation, Titan was a graveyard." He gestured around the conference room. "Your Federation speaks of infinite diversity and infinite combinations. But you cannot escape the mathematics of finite resources. We've eliminated scarcity," Dax said, her voice sharp. "Replicators can produce virtually anything we need. Energy is abundant. We don't compete for survival. We explore, we learn, we grow." Thanos turned his gaze to her, and Sisko saw his science officer stiffen under the scrutiny. "How many of your replicators are functioning right now?" Thanos asked. "Not in theory. In practice. How many were destroyed in the war you're currently fighting? How many dilithium crystals have been exhausted powering your weapons? How many lives have been spent defending territory and resources?" He leaned forward. "I arrived through your wormhole during a battle. I observed debris fields, the wreckage of dozens of vessels. Tell me, join Trill who carries the memories of 8 lifetimes, does this look like a civilization that has conquered scarcity?" The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of the station's environmental systems. Sisko saw Dax's hands clench beneath the table, saw Kira's jaw working as she fought to keep her anger contained. Worf's grip on his phaser tightened incrementally. "The Dominion War is a conflict of ideology," Sisko said carefully. "The Founders believe they must impose order on the galaxy to protect themselves from chaos. We're fighting for the right of civilizations to determine their own futures." "And how many have died for that right?" Thanos asked. "How many billions of lives have been spent? If you had eliminated half the Dominion's population before this war began, painlessly, randomly, without prejudice, would the other half not have found peaceful coexistence preferable to this grinding mutual annihilation? That's insane." Kira snapped, her Bajoran passion overriding diplomatic restraint. "You're talking about murder on an unimaginable scale. Every person you killed had a life, had meaning, had people who loved them. You don't get to reduce them to numbers in your twisted equation." Thanos regarded her with something that might have been pity. "I watched everyone I loved die on Titan. Not quickly. Not mercifully. They starved. They fought over scraps. Civilization collapsed into cannibalism and chaos. The people I killed with the stones died instantly, without pain, without knowing. Their sacrifice allowed their children to inherit a sustainable universe." He paused. "Tell me, Bajoran, your world was occupied by the Cardassians for decades. Millions died in labor camps, from starvation, from casual cruelty. If the Cardassian population had been reduced by half before they ever reached Bajorans, would your people's suffering not have been prevented?" Kira stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the deck. "Don't you dare use Bayer's pain to justify your madness. The Cardassians chose to occupy us. They chose cruelty. Your victims never chose anything. You played God and decided their fate. Every leader makes choices that determine who lives and who dies." Thanos replied unmoved. "Your Captain Sisko chose to poison an entire planet to capture one man. Your Federation chose to ally with the Romulans, an empire built on deceit and assassination. You, Major Kira, have killed how many Cardassians in your resistance activities? Did each of them deserve death individually, or were they acceptable casualties in pursuit of liberation?" "That's different," Kira began, but Thanos raised a hand. "It is only different in scale. I simply had the courage to think on a universal level." Sisko stood, and the movement drew every eye in the room. "Constable Odo, run a deep scan. I want to know everything about those stones, their energy signatures, their composition, how they're interfacing with our universe's physics." "Already running, Captain," Odo replied. "Though I should note that Thanos has made no move to stop us from scanning him since he arrived. Almost as if he wants us to study the stones." Thanos nodded once. "Because they are changing. When I first emerged into your reality, the Power Stone gave me the strength to shatter moons. The Space Stone allowed me to traverse galaxies in an instant. Here." He clenched his fist, and purple energy sparked across the gauntlet. A hairline fracture appeared in the conference table's surface, but nothing more. Here your universe resists. Your physics operate on different fundamental constants. The stones are adapting, learning your reality's rules. In time, they will regain their full potency, or perhaps exceed it, transformed by this reality's unique properties. "Then why come here at all?" Dax asked. "If you knew the stones would be weakened." "Because my universe is dying," Thanos said, and for the first time, something beyond certainty entered his voice, something that might have been weariness. The snap was reversed. The stones were destroyed. But the damage was done. Reality itself was destabilized by their use. Time fractures. Space collapses. My universe is experiencing heat death accelerated by cosmic trauma. He met Sisko's eyes. "I tore through the barriers between realities seeking survival. I found your wormhole, a stable passage maintained by beings who exist outside linear causality. They could have prevented my entry. They did not. The prophets," Sisko said quietly. "You said they watched you pass. More than watched. I felt them, examining me. testing me. As if I were being judged for some purpose I do not yet understand. Thanos' expression darkened. In my universe, I was inevitable. Destiny manifested. Here, I am an anomaly, powerful but diminished, purpose uncertain. He looked at each person in the room in turn. So I ask you, Captain Sisko, prophet-chosen emissary to beings outside time, what lesson am I meant to learn in a universe at war with itself while claiming to have transcended the very conflicts that necessitated my crusade? Before Sisko could respond, the comm system crackled. Ops to Captain Sisko. Priority 1 transmission from Starfleet Command. Admiral Ross wants an immediate briefing on the intruder situation. Sisko tapped his comm badge. Tell the Admiral I'll contact him within the hour. Sisko out. He turned back to Thanos. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to submit to a full medical and technological scan. You're going to remain on this station under supervision. And you're going to help us understand exactly what you are and what threat you pose. And if I refuse? Then we find out if those weakened stones of yours can stand up to a full spread of quantum torpedoes. Sisko's voice carried absolute conviction. I don't care how powerful you were in your universe. Here you're in mine. And I've dealt with gods, time travelers, and shape-shifting despots. You're dangerous, Thanos of Titan, but you're not invincible. Thanos studied Sisko for a long moment, and then something unexpected happened. He laughed. It was a sound like grinding stone, rough with disuse, but genuine. You remind me of someone I once knew. A warrior who refused to yield even when yielding was rational. He stood, towering over everyone in the room. Very well, Captain. I will submit to your examination. But know this, I came to your universe seeking understanding, not conquest. Whether I find it or whether I conclude that your Federation's ideals are a beautiful lie that will inevitably collapse, that remains to be seen. Odo, escort our guests to quarters, reinforced ones. Medical team standing by for examination. Sisko watched as the changeling moved to Thanos' side, liquid form maintaining a cautious distance. As they reached the door, Sisko called out. Thanos. The Mad Titan paused, turning back. The prophets exist outside time. They see all possible futures simultaneously. If they let you through, it wasn't random. They're trying to teach me something through you, or teach you something through me. Sisko's voice softened slightly. In my experience, their lessons are never comfortable. But they're always necessary. Thanos nodded slowly. Then perhaps we are both students in a classroom neither of us chose, Captain. I look forward to discovering what we're meant to learn. As the door closed behind Thanos and Odo, Kira turned to Sisko. Benjamin, you can't seriously be considering letting him stay. He admitted to universal genocide. He's a monster. He's a refugee from a dying universe. Sisko countered. And a test. The prophets don't do anything without reason. He looked at Dax. Old man, I need you to analyze every word he said. Find the contradictions, the weaknesses in his philosophy. Already on it. Dax replied. But Benjamin, what if there aren't any? What if his mathematics actually work? Sisko met her gaze. Then we prove that there's something his equations don't account for. Something the Federation represents that transcends resource management and survival calculus. He tapped his comm badge. Sisko to Ops. Get me a channel to Starfleet Intelligence. And someone find out if Section 31 has any operations in this sector. The last thing we need is them deciding Thanos is a weapon they can use. As his officers moved to execute his orders, Sisko stood alone in the conference room, staring at the hairline crack Thanos had left in the table, a casual demonstration of power barely constrained. Somewhere in the station, a being who had murdered trillions was allowing himself to be studied, waiting for something. The prophets had sent him a message wrapped in purple skin and ancient conviction. Now Sisko had to figure out what it meant before that message destroyed everything he'd sworn to protect. The infirmary on Deep Space Nine had treated phaser wounds, Jem'Hadar Ketracel white withdrawal, and even a changeling suffering from a morphogenic virus. Dr. Julian Bashir had seen species from across 2 quadrants, their biologies catalogued and understood through centuries of Federation medical science. But as he ran his medical tricorder over Thanos' massive frame, every reading defied explanation. "Fascinating," Bashir murmured, adjusting the tricorder settings for the 4th time. "Your cellular structure is unlike anything in our database. Incredibly dense musculature, a skeleton that appears to be reinforced at the molecular level, and a cardiovascular system that operates at efficiency levels that should be impossible." Thanos sat on the reinforced biobed, his gauntlet hand resting on his knee. "I am eternal, a subspecies of humanity from Titan, genetically enhanced over millennia. My physiology was designed for survival in hostile environments." "And yet you're mortal," Bashir observed. "Your cells show signs of aging, albeit at a remarkably slow rate. You're what, several hundred years old?" 1047 by my reckoning." Thanos watched as Bashir's nurse, a efficient Bajoran named Jabara, carefully positioned a scanner near the Infinity Gauntlet. "Your concern is the stones, not my biology." "Both concern me," Bashir replied. "The stones are emitting radiation across multiple spectrums. Some we recognize, many we don't. But what's particularly interesting is how they're interacting with our universe's subspace field." He pulled up a display. "See these fluctuations? The stones are attempting to establish resonance with local spacetime, like a musical instrument tuning itself to a new key." Thanos' eyes narrowed with interest. "How long until they achieve full resonance?" "Unknown. Days, perhaps weeks. The adaptation appears to be accelerating." Bashir set down his tricorder and met Thanos' gaze directly. "You said you used these stones to eliminate half of all life in your universe. I need to understand, was it truly instant and painless? You question whether I showed mercy in my crusade? I question whether you're telling the truth." Bashir's tone was clinical, but his eyes held something harder. "I'm genetically enhanced myself, illegal augmentations that gave me abilities beyond normal humans. I've spent my life trying to prove that superior ability doesn't equate to superior morality. You're sitting here claiming you committed the greatest act of mass murder in cosmic history out of benevolence. Forgive me if I'm skeptical." For a long moment, Thanos said nothing. Then he raised his gauntlet hand, and the purple power stone flared. "In my universe, I could have made them suffer. I could have stretched their deaths across centuries, made examples of worlds that resisted, ruled through terror rather than necessary sacrifice. Instead..." He snapped his fingers, and the sound echoed through the infirmary like a thunderclap. "Instant. Random. Rich and poor, young and old, guilty and innocent. The snap showed no favorites. Except you survived," Bashir noted. "How convenient. I survived because someone had to ensure the balance was maintained." Thanos lowered his hand. "You judge me, Doctor. I see it in your eyes. But tell me, if you knew with absolute certainty that a disease would kill billions, would you not act to prevent it, even if the cure required terrible sacrifice? Not if the cure was worse than the disease." Spoken like someone who has never watched a civilization collapse. Thanos' voice carried the weight of genuine pain. "I saw Titan die, Dr. Bashir. Not from war or plague, but from success. We became too prosperous, too numerous. Our resources couldn't sustain us. The dying lasted decades. Slow, agonizing, brutal. By the end, there were no innocents left, only survivors who had done monstrous things to continue existing one more day." He paused. "Would you call my mercy worse than that reality?" Before Bashir could respond, the comm system activated. "Ops to infirmary. We have an incoming vessel, Dominion signature. They're hailing us specifically about our guest." Bashir tapped his comm badge. "Acknowledged." He looked at Thanos. "It appears word travels fast. The Dominion has taken an interest in you." "Of course they have." Thanos stood, his full height making the infirmary feel suddenly cramped. An empire built on enforced order through genetic engineering and drug-dependent soldiers. They would see me as either threat or opportunity. He smiled grimly. Let me guess, they'll offer alliance, resources, perhaps even assistance in restoring my stone's full power, in exchange for my aid in their war. You seem very familiar with conquest politics. I've conquered thousands of worlds, Doctor. I know how empires think. Thanos moved toward the door, where Odo waited in his security chief's uniform. Your Captain Sisko will want me present for this negotiation. The question is whether he trusts me enough to bring me to Ops, or whether he fears I'll use the situation to my advantage. Odo's features remained impassive. The captain wants you in Ops. But Thanos, make one threatening move, and I'll demonstrate what a changeling security chief can do to someone's internal organs when properly motivated. Noted, Constable. Thanos followed Odo into the corridor, Bashir trailing behind. As they walked, station personnel pressed themselves against bulkheads, eyes wide with fear or fascination. Thanos ignored them all, his attention focused inward. The Dominion. He'd observed their ships during his passage through the wormhole, efficient designs, brutal tactics, overwhelming numerical superiority. An empire that valued order above individual freedom, that engineered its soldiers to be absolutely loyal, that eliminated variables through genetic manipulation and authoritarian control. They reminded him of the Chitauri, the Sakaran forces, the Black Order, tools wielded by those who understood that power without sentiment was the purest form of strength. But he'd also seen something else during his arrival, the wreckage of battle, the desperation of defenders, the cost of this prolonged conflict. Both sides were hemorrhaging resources, throwing lives into the grinding machine of war. The irony wasn't lost on him. These civilizations possessed technology that could eliminate scarcity, yet they were locked in a struggle over territory and ideology that was bleeding them dry. Perhaps the Dominion would understand what he'd tried to accomplish. Perhaps they'd see the logic in his solution. Or perhaps they'd simply try to use him as a weapon, never understanding that Thanos of Titan had never served anyone's agenda but his own. The turbolift carried them upward, and Thanos felt the subtle shift in the station's artificial gravity, the hum of power conduits running through the walls. Deep Space Nine was an impressive structure, Cardassian engineering repurposed by Federation ingenuity. But it was also a target, a strategic choke point that both sides of this war would sacrifice millions to control. The lift doors opened onto Ops, and Thanos immediately assessed the situation. Sisko stood at the central console, his posture radiating controlled tension. Wharfman tactical, weapons undoubtedly armed and ready. Kira and Dax flanked the captain, while O'Brien worked furiously at engineering, likely preparing contingencies. On the main view screen, a face appeared that Thanos recognized from his observations during arrival, Vorta, the Dominion's diplomatic administrators. Pale skin, violet eyes, an expression of practiced courtesy that concealed ruthless calculation. Captain Sisko, the Vorta said smoothly. I am Weyoun of the Vorta. I come bearing a message from the founders themselves regarding the extraordinary being who has entered this quadrant. Sisko's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The founders are taking a personal interest in station affairs now. When a being emerges from the celestial temple carrying power signatures that defy our understanding of physics, yes, Captain. The founders are very interested indeed. Weyoun's eyes shifted, finding Thanos standing near the turbolift. Ah. So the rumors are true. Magnificent. Simply magnificent. Thanos stepped forward, ignoring Sisko's warning glance. You know of me? The founders exist as liquid, able to shift form, to share consciousness when joined in the Great Link. They perceive reality differently than solids. Weyoun's smile widened. When you emerged from the wormhole, they felt the disruption across subspace. They have foreseen your arrival, Thanos of Titan. And they wish to extend an offer. Weyoun, Sisko began, but Thanos raised his gauntlet hand. Let him speak, Captain. I'm curious what gods in liquid form believe they can offer a refugee from a dying universe. Weihound's expression became reverent. The founders wish to meet you personally. They believe you understand what they have always known, that order must be imposed on chaos, that the needs of the many outweigh the rights of the few, that difficult decisions require the courage to act decisively. He paused for effect. They offer you sanctuary, resources, and the opportunity to restore your stones to full power using Dominion science. In exchange, they ask only that you consider their perspective on bringing order to the Alpha Quadrant. The silence in Ops was absolute. Every person present understood what this meant. The Dominion wanted to recruit Thanos, to transform him from refugee into weapon. Thanos smiled, and it was the expression of a predator recognizing worthy prey. Tell your founders I accept their invitation. I would very much like to meet beings who believe they've perfected the art of imposed order. Absolutely not. Sisko's voice cut through Ops like a phaser blast. He stepped between Thanos and the view screen, his body language making his position unmistakable. Thanos is not going anywhere near Dominion space. He's in Federation custody pending a full security evaluation. Weihound's expression remained pleasant, but his eyes hardened. Captain Sisko, I'm afraid you misunderstand the situation. Thanos emerged from the Celestial Temple, Bajoran space, not Federation territory. And as the being in question has just accepted our invitation, I fail to see what authority you have to prevent his departure. The authority of someone who won't let you turn a self-admitted mass murderer into a weapon of war. Sisko shot back. This meeting is over, Weihound. Wait. Thanos' voice carried quiet command. Captain, your concern is noted. But Weihound raises a valid point. I entered this universe through the wormhole. I have claimed no allegiance to your Federation. What right do you have to imprison me? Sisko turned, his eyes locking with Thanos's. The right of someone who knows exactly what you are. You didn't come here seeking sanctuary, you came seeking validation. You want someone to tell you that your genocide was justified, that your crusade had meaning. He took a step closer. The Dominion will tell you exactly what you want to hear. They'll praise your difficult choices and your vision. And then they'll aim you at the Federation and watch you do their killing for them. You presume to know my mind, Captain? I know zealots. I've fought them, reasoned with them, and when necessary, I've stopped them. Sisko's voice dropped lower. The Founders rule through genetic manipulation and drug addiction. Their entire empire is built on stripping free will from their subjects. If you go to them, you become complicit in exactly the kind of oppression you claim to oppose. Thanos studied Sisko with renewed interest. You speak with the certainty of someone who has made morally questionable choices himself. The planet you poisoned, Weihound mentioned it in our initial scan of your service record. Tell me, how many Maquis died because you rendered their colony world uninhabitable? The question hung in the air like a primed torpedo. Kira's hand moved toward her phaser. Worf's growl was audible across Ops. But Sisko held Thanos' gaze without flinching. None. I gave them time to evacuate. And I did it to prevent a war that would have killed thousands. His voice carried the weight of that decision. But I live with that choice every day, Thanos. It haunts me. That's the difference between us. You wear your atrocities like medals. I carry mine like scars. For a long moment neither man spoke. Then Thanos nodded slowly. Perhaps that is a difference worth exploring. He turned to the view screen. Weihound, tell your founders I require time to consider their offer. I would speak with Captain Sisko further before making any commitments. Weihound's pleasant mask slipped slightly. The founders are not accustomed to being made to wait. Then they will learn patience. Thanos' tone brooked no argument. I have existed for over a millennium. I do not make hasty decisions based on flattery and promises. If your gods in liquid form wish my allegiance, they will earn it through substance, not rhetoric. The Vorta's eyes flickered with something between annoyance and calculation. Very well. We shall convey your response to the founders. But Thanos, understand that the Dominion's generosity has limits. We offer you partnership now. That offer will not remain indefinitely. The transmission ended. Sisko exhaled slowly. That bought us time. Not much, but some. He turned to his officers. Major, I want sensor nets monitoring every approach to the station. If the Dominion ship so much as twitches in our direction, I want to know about it. Worf, tactical analysis. What would it take to extract Thanos by force if they decide to come get him? At least a dozen Jem'Hadar attack ships, likely a battlecruiser. Worf replied grimly. We could not prevent his abduction without significant casualties. Then we make sure it doesn't come to that. Sisko looked at Thanos. You bought me time. Why? Because you interested me. Thanos moved to the central console, studying the strategic displays showing Federation and Dominion fleet positions. The Vorta was correct. You have no legal authority to hold me. Yet you attempted it anyway, risking diplomatic incident and potential conflict. Either you're foolish, or you genuinely believe the Dominion represents a threat significant enough to warrant such risk. Both can be true. Dax interjected. The Dominion has killed millions in this war. They've weaponized entire species, deployed biological warfare, and shown zero regard for civilian populations. If they get access to your stones, even weakened ones, they'll use that power without hesitation or mercy. As would your Federation, given sufficient motivation. Thanos gestured at the displays. You speak of the Dominion's crimes. How many of your own ships are equipped with weapons capable of sterilizing planets? How many torpedoes in your arsenal carry enough destructive force to eliminate entire civilizations? The difference between you and them is not capability. It's the willingness to use it. No, Kira said sharply. The difference is choice. We choose restraint. We choose to value life. The Dominion chooses conquest and control. And if restraint leads to your extinction? Thanos asked. If the Dominion conquers the Federation because you were unwilling to employ the same ruthless tactics they use, will your moral superiority matter to the billions who die or are enslaved? O'Brien slammed his hand on his console. That's not how it works. We don't preserve our values by abandoning them the moment they become inconvenient. Then you've never faced true existential threat, Thanos countered. When the choice is between compromise and annihilation, philosophy becomes luxury. Sisko held up a hand, silencing the brewing argument. Thanos, you said the prophets let you through. That they examined you. What did you sense from them? The question shifted the tenor of the room. Thanos' expression became contemplative. Curiosity. Assessment. They exist outside linear time. They perceive past, present, and future as simultaneous. When I passed through their domain they... He paused, searching for words. They showed me fragments. Possible outcomes. Futures branching from this moment. What did you see? Sisko pressed. Contradictions. Thanos met Sisko's eyes. In one future, I allied with the Dominion. Their war ended within months, brutal, total victory. The Alpha Quadrant unified under Founder rule. Order imposed. No more conflict. He held up a second finger. In another, I opposed them. Catastrophic losses on both sides. Billions dead. The war prolonged by years. And in a third? Dax asked quietly. In a third, I learned something that challenged everything I believed. Thanos' voice carried genuine uncertainty, perhaps the first real vulnerability he'd shown. The prophets did not explain. They simply showed me these paths and allowed me to pass into your reality. I suspect, Captain Sisko, that you were meant to help me understand which future I choose. Sisko felt the weight of that statement. The prophets had used him before, made him their emissary, guided him toward actions that served purposes he didn't fully comprehend until later. Now they'd sent him Thanos, a being who represented everything the Federation opposed, wrapped in enough power to potentially end the Dominion War. I need to consult the prophets directly, Sisko said. Major, you have ops. Dax, you're with me. Benjamin, the wormhole. Dax began. I know. But if the prophets sent Thanos here, they owe me an explanation. He looked at Thanos. You'll remain on the station. Confined to quarters under security detail. Consider it protective custody. And if I refuse? Then Odo demonstrates his threat about internal organs, and we find out if those stones can heal you faster than a changeling can do damage. Sisko's voice was steel. Your choice. Thanos smiled faintly. You would make an excellent adversary, Captain. Very well, I will remain for now. But understand that I am choosing cooperation, not submission. The moment I conclude your federation is simply another empire hiding behind noble rhetoric, that cooperation ends. Noted. Sisko nodded to Odo. Constable, escort him to quarters. Maximum security. As Thanos departed, flanked by Odo and a full security detail, Kira moved to Sisko's side. Benjamin, are you sure about this? Consulting the prophets while leaving him on the station? The prophets sent him here for a reason, Neres. I need to know what it is before the Dominion forces our hand or Thanos decides his patience is exhausted. Sisko headed for the turbolift. Besides, something he said bothers me. What's that? He claimed the prophets showed him 3 futures. But when has anything involving them ever been that simple? Sisko's expression darkened. They're teaching me something through him. I just hope I figure out what before it's too late. The runabout Rio Grande slipped away from Deep Space Nine's docking clamps, its impulse engines carrying it toward the mouth of the wormhole. Sisko sat at the helm, Dax monitoring sensors beside him. Behind them, the station grew smaller against the backdrop of Bayer's russet surface. Benjamin, are you sure this is wise? Dax asked quietly. Leaving the station while Thanos is aboard, with the Dominion fleet potentially en route? Worf can handle the station's defense. And Thanos won't make a move yet. He's still gathering information, trying to understand this universe. Sisko adjusted their approach vector. Besides, if the prophets wanted him destroyed, they wouldn't have let him through. They have a purpose for him. I need to know what it is. The wormhole shimmered into existence ahead of them, that impossible bloom of blue and white energy that defied every law of physics Starfleet had catalogued. Sisko had passed through it hundreds of times, but it never became routine. Each transit was a reminder that some things existed beyond human understanding. The runabout entered the event horizon, and reality twisted. Sisko found himself standing in a space that wasn't space, the Celestial Temple, as the Bajorans called it. The prophets appeared around him in forms pulled from his memories. His wife Jennifer, long dead, Kai Opaka, the spiritual leader who'd first proclaimed him emissary. Even his own father Joseph. But their movements were stilted, their expressions alien. The prophets wore human faces like ill-fitting masks. Sisko. They spoke in chorus, their voices overlapping. The emissary returns. You let Thanos through, Sisko said without preamble. A being who committed genocide on a universal scale. Why? The prophet wearing Jennifer's face tilted its head. Genocide. The end of existence. Your words are linear. Insufficient. Then help me understand in linear terms, Sisko pressed. You exist outside time. You see all possible futures. You knew what Thanos was, what he'd done. Why allow him into our universe? The prophet resembling his father gestured, and the space around them shifted. Sisko saw images flowing past. Deep Space Nine engulfed in flames, Federation worlds falling to Dominion occupation, the wormhole collapsing into nothingness. Then the images reversed, showing different outcomes. Thanos standing alongside Jem'Hadar warriors, his gauntlet raised as entire fleets burned. Thanos kneeling before the Founders, the stones being removed from his hand. Thanos and Sisko standing together against an enemy Sisko couldn't quite see. Many futures, the prophets intoned. Many paths. The Sisko must choose. Choose what? Whether to trust him? Whether to stop him? The Destroyer seeks balance. The emissary seeks justice. These concepts intersect and diverge. Both contain truth. Both contain deception. The prophet wearing Kaiopaka's features moved closer. Thanos of Titan believes he understands necessity. He does not. The Sisko believes he understands morality. He does not. Only through conflict between destroyer and emissary can understanding emerge. Sisko felt frustration building. The prophets never gave straight answers. Everything was riddles and nonlinear perception. Is Thanos a threat to the Federation? To Bajorans? He is catalyst. Outcome uncertain. The Sisko's choices will determine whether Catalyst creates or destroys. The prophets circled him, their movements synchronized. The Dominion offers him validation. Section 31 offers him purpose. The Federation offers him redemption. 3 paths. All lead to transformation. Transformation of what? Of Thanos. Of the Sisko. Of the Alpha Quadrant. The images shifted again, and Sisko saw something that made his blood run cold. Thanos standing in Ops, the Infinity Stones fully restored and blazing with power, reality itself bending around him. But whether he was defending the station or destroying it, Sisko couldn't tell. His stones are adapting to our universe, Sisko said. Growing stronger. When they reach full power. Power is constant. Understanding is variable. The prophet with Jennifer's face reached out, placing a hand on Sisko's chest. The destroyer measures value in survival. Counts lives as numbers. Sees sacrifice as mathematics. The emissary measures value in meaning. Counts individuals as irreplaceable. Sees sacrifice as tragedy. Both perspectives are incomplete. Both perspectives are necessary. You're saying I need to learn from him? Sisko's voice rose. He murdered trillions. And the Sisko poisoned a world. Smaller scale. Same principle. Difficult choice made for greater purpose. The prophets showed him that moment, the defiant deploying trilithium resin, rendering the Maquis colony uninhabitable. The destroyer and the emissary are not opposites. They are reflections. No. Sisko shook his head vehemently. I gave those colonists time to evacuate. I minimized casualties. Thanos killed without discrimination, without mercy. Mercy. Another linear concept that obscures truth. The space around them darkened. The Dominion War consumes millions. Both sides claim necessity. Both sides claim morality. Both sides believe their cause justifies any cost. Where is the difference between the destroyer's philosophy and the war you currently fight? The question hit Sisko like a physical blow. He'd asked himself the same thing during the darkest moments of the war, when he'd worked with Garrick to bring the Romulans into the conflict through deception, when he'd watched casualty reports climb into the hundreds of thousands, when he'd ordered strikes knowing civilians would die in the crossfire. The difference is intention, Sisko said finally. We're fighting to preserve freedom, diversity, the right of civilizations to determine their own futures. Thanos fought to impose his vision on everyone, whether they wanted it or not. And the Dominion believes it fights to preserve order, stability, the safety of all beings under Founder guidance. The prophets' voices carried something that might have been amusement. Intention is justification. All beings justify. Justification is not truth. Then what is truth? The prophets converged, their forms merging into a single point of light. Truth is choice made in moment of greatest uncertainty. Thanos chose destruction believing it was creation. The Sisko must choose whether destroyer can learn creation without destruction. This is the lesson. This is the test. A test of what? My judgment? My compassion? Test of whether linear beings can transcend linear thinking. Whether the emissary and the destroyer can both evolve beyond their certainties. The light expanded, filling the entire space. We allowed Thanos passage because his universe is dying. We allowed Thanos passage because your universe is at war. 2 realities in crisis. 2 champions of opposing philosophies. What emerges from their collision will determine whether the celestial temple remains open or closes forever. The implications crashed over Sisko. You're using us. Using this war, Thanos, all of it, as some kind of experiment. Experiment. Intervention. Evolution. Linear words for nonlinear necessity. The light began to fade. The Sisko will return to the corporeal realm. He will face choices. Some choices will bring him closer to the Destroyer's philosophy. Some will distance him. All choices matter. All futures remain possible. Wait! Sisko called out. What about the Dominion? They want to use Thanos as a weapon. If he goes to them, then the Sisko will have failed to provide alternative that resonates with Destroyer's truth. The prophet's voices grew distant. Go, Emissary. Time is linear. Waste none of it. Reality snapped back into focus. Sisko found himself in the runabout's cockpit, Dax staring at him with concern. Benjamin? You were gone for 3 minutes. What did they say? Sisko gripped the helm controls, his knuckles white. They said Thanos is a test. For me. For the Federation. For everyone. He turned the runabout back toward the station. And they said if we fail, they'll close the wormhole permanently. They'd strand us from the Gamma Quadrant? Why? Because they're not just watching anymore, old man. They're actively intervening. Thanos isn't just a refugee, he's a challenge. The prophets want to know if beings who exist in linear time can transcend their limitations, learn from someone who represents everything they oppose. Dax was silent for a moment. And if we can't? Then the prophets will decide that corporeal beings aren't worth their continued attention. Sisko increased their speed, pushing the runabout's engines. We need to get back to the station. Because whether I like it or not, Thanos is my responsibility now. And I need to figure out how to teach a genocidal conqueror that there's a better way, before he decides the Dominion's offer is the only one worth accepting. As Deep Space Nine grew larger in the view screen, Sisko's mind raced. The prophets had essentially told him that his conversations with Thanos mattered on a cosmic scale. That somehow, through dialogue and confrontation with a being who'd murdered half his universe, Sisko was supposed to find a truth that transcended both their perspectives. He just hoped he could do it before Section 31, the Dominion, or Thanos' own impatience turned the Mad Titan into the weapon everyone feared he could become. Sisko arrived back at Deep Space Nine to find ops in controlled chaos. Kira was coordinating with 3 Bajoran militia ships taking defensive positions around the station. Worf stood at tactical, his expression grimmer than usual. O'Brien worked furiously at engineering, rerouting power conduits with the intensity of someone preparing for battle. Report, Sisko commanded, stepping out of the turbolift. We've got company, Kira said, gesturing to the view screen. A Section 31 operative arrived 20 minutes ago. He's with Thanos now, in the holding quarters. Sisko's jaw tightened. You let a Section 31 agent alone with our prisoner? Odo's with them, Worf interjected. The agent, he identified himself as Sloan, claimed he had authorization from Starfleet Intelligence. His credentials checked out. Section 31 doesn't answer to Starfleet Intelligence. They answer to no one. Sisko was already moving toward the turbolift. Dax, you're with me. Major, maintain alert status. If any Dominion ships approach, I want to know immediately. The turbolift ride felt interminable. Sisko's conversation with the prophets still echoed in his mind, their cryptic warnings, their insistence that Thanos represented both threat and opportunity. Now Section 31 had entered the equation, and nothing good ever came from their involvement. The holding quarters were located in one of the station's most secure sections, protected by multiple force fields and constant surveillance. 2 security officers stood at attention outside. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, Sisko could see 3 figures inside. Odo, maintaining his position near the door, Thanos, seated calmly on a reinforced chair, and a human man in nondescript civilian clothing, standing with the relaxed confidence of someone who knew he held all the cards. Luther Sloan. Sisko had encountered him before, a ghost who appeared when the Federation's darker impulses needed plausible deniability. Sloan represented everything Sisko despised about the intelligence community: the conviction that morality was optional when security was at stake, that any action could be justified in defense of Federation ideals. Sisko entered without announcing himself. Sloan turned, offering a pleasant smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Captain Sisko. Good timing. Thanos and I were just discussing the nature of necessary evils. This interview is over," Sisko said flatly. "Leave the station, Sloan." "I'm afraid I can't do that. Thanos represents an unprecedented security concern, an opportunity. Section 31 needs to assess whether he's an asset we can utilize or a threat we need to neutralize." Sloan's smile widened. "Surely you understand the stakes, Captain. The Dominion War is bleeding us dry. If Thanos' abilities could be leveraged to end this conflict, then what? We become exactly what we're fighting against." Sisko stepped between Sloan and Thanos. "I won't let you turn him into a weapon." Thanos spoke for the first time, his voice carrying dark amusement. "Captain, your operative here has been quite persuasive. He's explained how your Federation's official morality often conflicts with practical necessity. How Section 31 operates in the shadows, doing what must be done while the rest of your civilization maintains its ethical pretenses." He gestured at Sloan. "It's refreshingly honest. Almost admirable." "Don't be flattered," Sisko shot back. "Sloan's organization doesn't admire you, they fear you. And they want to control you before someone else does." "Perceptive," Sloan acknowledged, "but not entirely accurate. We recognize that Thanos' philosophy, while extreme, contains operational value. His willingness to make difficult choices without moral hesitation is precisely the mindset needed to win wars." He turned to Thanos. "We're offering you purpose, direction, and the resources to restore your stones to full functionality. In exchange, you help us eliminate the Dominion threat." "By eliminating half their population?" Dax asked sharply. "Is that your solution?" "If necessary," Sloan replied without hesitation. "The Founders, the Vorta leadership, the Jem'Hadar production facilities, targeted elimination of key Dominion assets could end this war in weeks instead of years. Millions of Federation lives saved. Entire worlds preserved. All it requires is the courage to act decisively." Thanos stood, his full height dwarfing everyone in the room. "You speak of courage, but I see calculation. You don't believe in my mission, you simply want to aim my power at your enemies." His gauntlet hand clenched. "I've dealt with beings like you across 1,000 worlds. Opportunists who praise conviction while possessing none themselves." Sloan's expression didn't change. "We're alike, Thanos. We both understand that survival requires pragmatism. The only difference is scale." "No." Thanos' voice carried absolute certainty. "The difference is purpose. I sought to save existence itself from inevitable collapse. You seek to preserve your specific civilization's dominance. I acted without prejudice, rich and poor, powerful and weak, all equal before the snap. You would target enemies while protecting allies, maintaining the same imbalanced system that necessitated my crusade." For the first time, Sloan's composure cracked slightly. "You're refusing our offer? I'm observing that you understand nothing about balance. You see only advantage and threat, ally and enemy. True balance requires impartiality, something your Section 31 fundamentally lacks." Thanos turned to Sisko. "Your Federation presents an interesting paradox, Captain. Your official ideology rejects everything I represent, yet your shadow organization embraces my methods while pretending moral superiority. Tell me, which represents the Federation's true nature?" Sisko met Thanos' gaze directly. "Neither. Section 31 operates outside Federation authority precisely because we reject their methods. They're not sanctioned, they're tolerated, because perfect idealism doesn't survive contact with reality. But they don't define us. Then what does? Thanos challenged. The struggle to live up to our ideals even when it's difficult. Sisko replied. The choice to seek better solutions instead of easy ones. Sloane's right that we sometimes fail, that we make compromises, that we don't always live up to our principles. But we keep trying. That's the difference between us and you. We see our failures as problems to solve, not justifications for abandoning morality entirely. Sloane laughed quietly. Inspiring speech, Captain. But while you're philosophizing, the Dominion is conquering systems and killing millions. Thanos offers a solution. Brutal, yes, but effective. Are you really going to reject that because it offends your sensibilities? I'm rejecting it because it's wrong, Sisko said. And because the prophets sent Thanos here to teach me something. Something I can't learn if Section 31 turns him into just another intelligence asset. The prophets. Sloane's voice dripped skepticism. You're basing strategic decisions on the cryptic pronouncements of wormhole aliens who don't understand linear existence. They understand it better than you think, Dax interjected. The prophets exist outside time. They see all possible futures. If they allowed Thanos through, it's because his presence serves a purpose beyond what any of us can immediately grasp. Thanos studied Sisko with renewed interest. You truly believe these beings sent me to you for a reason? I know they did. I just spoke with them. Sisko took a step closer. They said you're a catalyst? That our confrontation, yours and mine, will determine something important. I don't fully understand it yet, but I know it's more significant than anything Sloane's offering. For a long moment, Thanos said nothing. Then he looked at Sloane. Leave. If I decide your organization's offer has merit, I'll contact you. Until then, your presence is unnecessary. Sloane's eyes narrowed. You're making a mistake. The Dominion will come for you. Their offer is already public knowledge through subspace channels. Without Section 31's protection. I have survived annihilation of half the universe, the rage of Earth's mightiest heroes, and the collapse of reality itself. Thanos interrupted. I believe I can survive your Alpha Quadrant politics without your assistance. Sloane looked at Sisko. This isn't over, Captain. Thanos represents too significant an asset, or threat, to leave in the hands of someone guided by mystical visions and outdated ethics. He moved toward the door. When the Dominion fleet arrives to claim him, and you realize you can't stop them without compromising those precious principles of yours, remember that Section 31 offered an alternative. After Sloane departed, silence filled the room. Odo shifted slightly, liquid form rippling with residual tension. That was either very brave or very foolish, the changeling observed. Probably both, Sisko admitted. He looked at Thanos. You rejected Section 31's offer. Why? Because they reminded me of those who praised my crusade while secretly plotting to use the stones for their own purposes. The Black Order, Ronin, even Loki in his way, all claim to believe in balance while pursuing selfish ends. Thanos returned to his seat. If I am to be tested in this universe, Captain, it will be on my terms. Not as a pawn in your intelligence agency's games. The Dominion is still out there, Dax warned. They won't wait forever for your decision. Then perhaps, Thanos said slowly, it is time I learn more about these founders who believe they can offer me what I seek. Not from their propaganda, but from someone who knows them intimately. His eyes found Odo. Constable. You are Changeling, one of the Founders' people, if I understand correctly. Tell me about the gods who wish to recruit me. Odo remained silent for a long moment, his humanoid features hardening into something unreadable. The Changeling security chief had always been private about his origins, about the painful truth that his people, the Founders, were the architects of the Dominion's brutal conquest. Finally, he spoke. The Founders believe themselves to be gods, Odo said quietly. They call themselves the Founders of the Dominion, but their true name is more revealing, the Changelings. We are a liquid species, capable of assuming any form. Long ago, we explored the galaxy in our natural state, seeking knowledge and companionship. And? Thanos prompted. We were persecuted. Hunted. Tortured by the solids. Humanoid species who feared what they couldn't understand. The founders retreated to a single planet in the Gamma Quadrant and decided never to be vulnerable again. Odo's voice carried the weight of inherited trauma. They created the Dominion, an empire built on control. The Vorta to administer, genetically engineered to worship the founders as gods. The Jem'Hadar to fight, bred for combat, and kept dependent on a drug called Ketracel White so they could never rebel. Efficient, Thanos observed. Ruthless, but effective. They eliminated variables, ensured loyalty through genetic manipulation and addiction. They enslaved entire species. Kira interjected, her voice sharp. The Vorta and Jem'Hadar didn't choose their roles, they were designed for them. Born into servitude without free will. Thanos tilted his head. Is that not what all civilizations do? Your Federation educates children to value exploration and diplomacy. The Klingon raise warriors. The Vulcans suppress emotion through cultural conditioning. All societies engineer their citizens toward preferred outcomes. The founders simply made the process explicit and biological. There's a difference between education and genetic slavery, Sisko said firmly. A matter of degree, not kind. Thanos turned back to Odo. Continue, Constable. What else should I know about the founders? Odo's features shifted uncomfortably, a tell that Sisko had learned to recognize. They exist in the Great Link, a merging of all changelings into a single ocean of shared consciousness. Individual identity dissolves. All thoughts, all experiences become collective. They claim it brings them closer to perfection. Unity without individuality, Thanos mused. The ultimate expression of order. No dissent, no conflict, only shared purpose. He paused. Yet you remain separate from them, Constable. Why? Because I've lived among solids. Learned to value individual perspective, personal relationships, the messy complexity of separate existence. Odo's gaze met Thanos's directly. The Great Link offers peace, certainty, belonging. But it requires surrendering everything that makes me, me. I've chosen individuality over unity. An interesting choice for someone whose people were nearly destroyed for being different. Thanos stood, pacing the small quarters with controlled energy. The founders created an empire to ensure they would never be victims again. Their solution to persecution was absolute control, eliminate threat through dominance. He looked at Sisko. Tell me, Captain, is that so different from your Federation's approach to the Borg? You don't negotiate with them. You destroy them when possible, flee when not. The Borg assimilate entire civilizations against their will. Dax countered. They're not a government, they're a plague. And the founders would say the same about chaotic solid species who inevitably resort to violence and persecution. Thanos replied. Perspective determines morality. The Borg believe they're bringing perfection through unity. The founders believe they're bringing order through control. You believe you're bringing freedom through your Prime Directive and diplomatic federation. He spread his hands. All three justify violence in pursuit of their vision. Sisko felt the conversation spiraling toward dangerous territory. Thanos was probing, testing their convictions, searching for inconsistencies. What's your point? My point is that the founders understand something your Federation refuses to acknowledge. That order requires hierarchy, that stability requires control, that survival requires difficult choices. Thanos' gauntlet hand clenched. When I eliminated half the universe, I didn't claim moral superiority. I didn't pretend it was anything other than what it was, a brutal calculation in service of long-term survival. The founders are equally honest about their methods. They're also losing, Odo said bluntly. The Dominion War has stretched their resources to breaking. They've suffered defeats they never anticipated. Their absolute control is proving less absolute than they believed. Thanos' eyes sharpened. Explain, The Cardassian alliance is fracturing, Kira said. The Breen joined the Dominion, but they're unpredictable allies. Federation Klingon-Romulan cooperation has created a coalition that matches Dominion strength. And every world the Dominion occupies becomes a potential rebellion. She leaned forward. The Founder's philosophy is failing in practice, Thanos. Control through force generates resistance. Genetic slavery creates resentment. Their empire is collapsing under the weight of its own brutality. Yet they continue fighting, Thanos observed. Despite setbacks, despite losses, they maintain their conviction. That suggests either admirable determination or fatal stubbornness. Or desperation, Sisko said quietly. The Founders are terrified. Terrified of returning to vulnerability. Terrified of being victims again. Their entire philosophy is built on fear. Fear of solids, fear of chaos, fear of losing control. That's why they want you, Thanos. Not because they admire your balance, because they think your power can restore their sense of absolute security. For the first time, Thanos looked genuinely thoughtful. He moved to the viewport, staring out at the stars beyond the station. I fought to prevent suffering. The Founders fight to prevent fear. Both goals noble in conception, both leading to tremendous violence in execution. He was silent for a moment. Captain Sisko, your prophets suggested I was here to learn something. Perhaps this is it. That absolute conviction, no matter how well-intentioned, inevitably becomes tyranny. That's part of it. Sisko agreed. But there's more. The prophets exist outside linear time. They see all possible outcomes simultaneously. They allowed you through because your presence forces all of us, Federation, Dominion, you, me, to confront our assumptions. A test, Thanos said. For all involved. Before anyone could respond, the comm system activated. Ops to Captain Sisko. Worf's voice carried urgent tension. Sensors detecting multiple Dominion ships dropping out of warp. 3 Jem'Hadar attack cruisers and 1 battleship. They're taking position around the station. Sisko exchanged glances with his officers. On my way. He looked at Thanos. It seems the Founders have lost patience. Or they're demonstrating what happens when their offers are delayed. Thanos replied. He followed Sisko toward the door. I should see this. If the Dominion is willing to start a battle over my allegiance, that reveals much about their desperation. You're not coming to Ops, Sisko said firmly. Then I'll watch from here. But Captain, understand that if shooting starts, I will defend myself. Your force fields won't contain me if I choose to leave, and I won't die in someone else's war while locked in a cage. Sisko studied him for a long moment, weighing risks against necessity. Odo stays with you. One aggressive move, and he has authorization to neutralize you by any means necessary. Acceptable. Thanos returned to the viewport, watching as the Dominion ships maneuvered into threatening positions. Let's see if your Federation's diplomatic skills are as impressive as your rhetoric, Captain. Or if violence is inevitable regardless of ideology. Sisko left Odo with Thanos and headed for Ops with Kira and Dax. As the turbolift descended, Kira spoke quietly. Benjamin, if the Dominion demands we hand him over, we refuse. Thanos is in Federation custody. We don't negotiate with threats. They have the firepower to take the station, Dax warned. 4 ships against our defenses. I know the odds, old man. Sisko's jaw set with determination. But if we cave to Dominion pressure now, every decision we make becomes subject to their veto. The line gets drawn here. The turbolift doors opened onto Ops. On the view screen, 4 Dominion vessels hung in space like predators circling prey. Worf stood at tactical, weapons charged and ready. O'Brien had power routing optimized for combat. The tension was electric. Hail them, Sisko commanded, settling into the command chair. Weyoun's face appeared on screen, his pleasant smile firmly in place. Captain Sisko, I trust you've had time to reconsider your position regarding our guest? Thanos remains in Federation protective custody, Sisko replied evenly. He's committed no crime in this jurisdiction, and he's expressed no desire to leave voluntarily. How unfortunate. Wei Yao's smile never wavered. The founders have determined that Thanos represents too significant a variable to remain unaligned. We're prepared to take custody of him, peacefully if possible, forcibly if necessary. Sisko leaned forward. And I'm prepared to defend this station against any hostile action. Your move, Wei Yao. The standoff held for 3 heartbeats. Wei Yao's pleasant expression remained fixed, but his eyes calculated odds and outcomes with the cold precision of a vertebrate for strategic thinking. Sisko kept his posture relaxed, hands visible on the armrests of his command chair, a gesture of non-aggression that didn't fool anyone. Captain, Wei Yao said finally, surely you recognize the futility of this position. 4 Dominion vessels against Deep Space Nine. Your shields are formidable, but not infinite. Your weapons can damage us, but you cannot win. Why sacrifice your station for a being who isn't even your ally? Because principles aren't negotiable based on odds. Sisko replied. Thanos is under Federation protection. That protection doesn't expire when it becomes inconvenient. Wei Yao tilted his head, genuinely puzzled. Fascinating. Your Federation will risk war, risk lives, risk this strategic position. All for a being who has admitted to mass murder on a scale that dwarfs anything the Dominion has committed. The cognitive dissonance is remarkable. It's called consistency. Kira interjected. Something your founders wouldn't recognize. Major Kira. Always a pleasure. Wei Yao's attention shifted. The founders are perfectly consistent. They protect order, eliminate chaos, ensure stability. Thanos represents chaos. His presence in the Alpha Quadrant creates unpredictable variables. We simply wish to contain that chaos before it spreads. By recruiting him as a weapon, Dax said. That's not containment, that's exploitation. Semantics. Wei Yao waved dismissively. Captain Sisko, I'll offer one final compromise. Allow the founders to meet with Thanos directly. Neutral ground. No coercion, no force, simply conversation. If he chooses Federation protection afterward, we'll withdraw. But he deserves to hear what we're offering before making that choice. Sisko considered. The offer sounded reasonable, which made it inherently suspect. Wei Yao didn't make concessions without ulterior motives. But refusing might trigger the battle neither side could afford, not with the war already bleeding both powers dry. I'll consult with Thanos, Sisko said carefully. But the decision is his, not yours or mine. Of course. Wei Yao's smile widened. We would never presume to deny someone their free will. Unlike some governments I could mention. The transmission ended. Worf growled low in his throat. Captain, this is a trap. The Dominion does not negotiate in good faith. I know. But we need to buy time. Sisko stood. Major, maintain battle stations but power down weapons. Show we're willing to talk. Chief, I want transporter locks on every Dominion ship. If they make a move, I want options. Aye, sir. O'Brien replied, hands already moving across his console. Sisko headed back to the holding quarters, his mind racing. The prophets had warned him that Thanos was a catalyst, that choices made now would ripple across futures. Allowing the founders direct access to the Mad Titan felt dangerous, but so did forcing a confrontation that could destroy the station and everyone aboard. He found Thanos still at the viewport, Odo maintaining vigilant watch. The Mad Titan turned as Sisko entered. I heard, Thanos said before Sisko could speak. Your station's internal communications aren't as secure as you believe. He gestured toward the Dominion fleet visible through the viewport. The founders want a meeting. You're wondering whether to allow it. The decision is yours, Sisko said. But I need you to understand, if you meet with them, there's a strong possibility they'll try to manipulate or coerce you. The founders are masters of control. They'll promise you everything while planning to use you as a weapon against the Federation. And you believe your Federation is different? Thanos asked. Your Section 31 agent made similar offers. Your Starfleet intelligence will undoubtedly make their own attempt soon. Everyone wants to aim the Mad Titan at their enemies. The only variable is which enemy, and what justification they provide. That's not... Sisko caught himself. Thanos was right. Every faction that encountered him saw the same thing, tremendous power that could be redirected toward their purposes. You're right. Everyone wants to use you. The question is whether you're willing to be used. Thanos smiled grimly. Finally, honesty. I appreciate that, Captain. He turned back to the viewport. I will meet with the Founders. But on my terms, in a location of my choosing, with observers present to ensure either side attempts deception. Where? The Wormhole. Thanos' eyes gleamed. Your profits exist within it, outside linear time. If the Founders truly wish to speak with me, let them do so under the gaze of beings who can see all possible outcomes of our conversation. That should constrain their more creative persuasive techniques. Sisko felt a chill. Bringing Thanos and the Founders together inside the Celestial Temple was either brilliant or catastrophically dangerous. The prophets existed outside conventional reality. Their perspective might prevent Dominion manipulation, or it might trigger consequences no one could predict. The prophets don't intervene in corporeal affairs directly, Sisko said slowly. They observe, they guide, but they don't control. Then they'll simply observe this meeting. Thanos moved toward the door. Unless you have a better suggestion? Sisko didn't. The Wormhole offered neutral ground that neither the Federation nor Dominion controlled. And having the prophets present meant someone would be watching who understood the stakes beyond immediate tactical advantage. I'll make the arrangements, Sisko said. But I'm coming with you. As am I, Odo added. If the Founders are involved, their emissary and their estranged child should both be present. Thanos nodded. Agreed. Captain Sisko represents your Federation's conscience. Constable Odo represents living proof that changelings can choose individuality over collective unity. Both perspectives are valuable. He looked at Sisko. When? 2 hours. That gives me time to coordinate with Starfleet Command and ensure the Dominion understands the terms. Sisko tapped his comm badge. Sisko to Ops. Inform Wayon that Thanos has agreed to meet with the Founders, inside the Wormhole, with Federation observers present. If they want this conversation, it happens on those terms or not at all. Kira's voice came back skeptical. Benjamin, are you sure about this? No. But it's the best option available. Prepare the Defiant for departure. Tactical status, but no aggressive posture. We're going into the Celestial Temple. Over the next 2 hours, Sisko coordinated the impossible. Starfleet Command objected strenuously. Admiral Ross called personally to express concern about allowing Thanos anywhere near Dominion representatives. Section 31 sent an encrypted message suggesting they would take appropriate action if the meeting resulted in Thanos joining the Dominion. Even the Bajoran provisional government protested bringing potential violence into their sacred celestial temple. Sisko overrode them all. The prophets had created this situation by allowing Thanos through. Now they would witness the consequences. The Defiant departed Deep Space Nine with minimal crew, Sisko, Dax at helm, Worf at tactical, Bashir in sickbay as a precaution, and O'Brien monitoring engineering. Odo and Thanos occupied the bridge, the Mad Titan studying the warship's systems with professional interest. Impressive vessel, Thanos observed. Designed for combat, not exploration. Your Federation claims to be peaceful, yet builds warships like this. Built specifically to fight the Borg, Sisko replied. Another threat to our existence. We don't seek war, but we prepare for it. Pragmatism hidden behind ideological rhetoric. Perhaps there's hope for your civilization after all. A Dominion shuttle launched from one of the attack cruisers, taking parallel course toward the Wormhole. Sisko watched it on the view screen, wondering what the Founders would send, a Vorta diplomat, Jem'Hadar guards, or something else entirely? Multiple life signs aboard the shuttle, Dax reported. Vorta, Jem'Hadar, and Benjamin, I'm reading changeling biosignatures. At least 3 founders are aboard that shuttle. Odo stiffened. 3? The founders rarely risk multiple individuals in situations they don't completely control. They're taking this seriously. Or they're that desperate, Sisko muttered. He activated ship-wide comm. All hands, we're approaching the wormhole. Remember, we're observers and escorts, not combatants. No one fires unless I give explicit orders. The wormhole blossomed before them, that familiar impossible flower of light and energy. The Defiant and the Dominion shuttle entered simultaneously, reality twisting around both vessels as they passed through. And inside the celestial temple, the prophets waited. Sisko found himself standing in the non-space of the wormhole, his crew scattered around him. Thanos stood tall, gauntlet glowing softly. Odo had assumed his liquid form, a golden humanoid shape rippling with tension. And facing them were 3 founders, changelings in humanoid form, their features indistinct and fluid. Behind them stood Wayan and 6 Jem'Hadar warriors, weapons lowered but ready. The prophets manifested as figures from Sisko's memory, his mother, his son Jake, his wife Jennifer. They stood between the 2 groups like judges preparing to hear arguments. One of the founders spoke, its voice like water flowing over stone. Thanos of Titan. We are the founders of the Dominion. We have brought order to the Gamma Quadrant. We offer you the opportunity to bring order to the Alpha Quadrant. Join us, and together we will create a universe free from chaos. Thanos studied the liquid beings with interest. You fear chaos because solids persecuted you. I sought balance because my world collapsed from excess. We both responded to trauma with absolutism. He paused. Tell me, founders, what happens when your order is complete? When every world bows to your control, when every being obeys your directives, when chaos is finally eliminated, what then? The founders exchanged glances, liquid forms rippling with unspoken communication. Finally, one replied, then there will be peace. Safety. No more persecution. No more fear. And no more growth. Thanos countered. No innovation, no adaptation, no evolution. Perfect order is stagnation. I learned that truth too late, after I'd already committed to my crusade. He looked at the prophets. These beings exist outside time. They see all possible futures. Ask them what your perfect order creates. Ask them if safety without freedom is truly peace. The prophets smiled, all 3 versions simultaneously. The destroyer learns, they said in chorus. The student teaches. Unexpected. Enlightening. The founders rippled with agitation, their liquid forms shifting through colors Sisko had never seen before, deep purples and angry reds bleeding through their usual golden hue. You presume to lecture us? One founder hissed. We who have created an empire spanning the Gamma Quadrant. We who have brought order to thousands of worlds. I presume to recognize a reflection of my own failures. Thanos replied calmly. You built your dominion from fear. I built my crusade from certainty. Both motivations led to the same destination: control through violence, order through oppression, peace through elimination of choice. We offer beings structure, protection, purpose. Another founder argued. The Vorta and Jem'Hadar serve willingly. They serve because you designed them to. Odo interrupted, his liquid form solidifying into his security chief's appearance. You engineered the Vorta to worship you. You bred the Jem'Hadar to need Ketracel white. You call it willing service, but it's genetic slavery. His voice carried centuries of suppressed anger. I've lived among solids. I've seen what you refuse to acknowledge. That freedom, messy and chaotic as it is, creates something your perfect order never can. Innovation. Growth. Genuine loyalty based on choice, not programming. The third founder focused on Odo with something like sorrow. You were one of the 100. Sent out to explore, to return home and share your experiences with the Great Link. Instead, you chose to remain separate. To deny your own people for these solids. The word dripped contempt. You cannot understand what we suffered. What the solids did to us. I understand perfectly, Odo said quietly. I've been hunted, feared, treated as a monster by people who didn't understand what I was. The difference is I didn't respond by enslaving entire species. I chose to prove my worth through actions, not dominance. Thanos watched the exchange with keen interest, then turned to the prophets. You brought me here to learn something. I'm beginning to understand what it is. These founders and I share the same fundamental flaw. We both believed our trauma justified imposing our vision on everyone else. We both mistook control for balance, order for peace. The prophet wearing Sarah Sisko's face stepped forward. The destroyer sees. But seeing is not yet transformation. Action defines outcome. Choice creates future. What choice? Thanos asked. Join the founders and become their weapon? Ally with the Federation and become their champion? Reject both and wander this universe alone? False dichotomy. The prophets replied. Linear thinking limits possibility. The destroyer must choose not sides, but principle. Must define purpose beyond trauma, beyond certainty, beyond need for control. The first founders' form rippled violently. Enough of this mystical nonsense. Thanos, we offer tangible benefit, restoration of your stone's full power, resources to rebuild, alliance with an empire that shares your willingness to make difficult choices. The Federation offers empty idealism and moral judgment. Which serves your purpose better? Thanos raised his gauntlet hand, and the power stone flared bright purple. The Jem'Hadar warriors immediately raised their weapons. Worf's hand moved to his phaser. The entire space crackled with potential violence. My purpose, Thanos said slowly, was to prevent suffering. To save the universe from the collapse I witnessed on Titan. I killed half of all life to give the other half a chance at sustainable existence. He clenched his fist, and the stone's light intensified. But the snap was reversed. My universe died anyway. Everything I sacrificed, everyone I killed, all the conviction that sustained me through my crusade, it meant nothing in the end. Then help us give it meaning, Wayon interjected smoothly. The Dominion faces chaotic forces that threaten galactic stability. Your power, properly applied, could end this war and create the ordered universe you originally envisioned. Your sacrifices would have purpose. No. Thanos' voice cut through the space like a blade. I won't make the same mistake twice. I won't let my past trauma define my future actions. I won't impose my vision on beings who never asked for my salvation. He looked at the founders directly. You want me as a weapon because you're losing. Your perfect order is crumbling against species who choose to fight for their freedom. That should tell you something about the sustainability of control through force. The founders' forms began to lose cohesion, rippling with barely contained rage. You dare. I dare because I have nothing left to lose. Thanos interrupted. My universe is dead. My crusade was reversed. I am a refugee in an alien reality, stripped of absolute power, confronted by beings who challenge everything I believed. He gestured at Sisko and Odo. These two have shown me something I never expected. That principle maintained through struggle is stronger than order imposed through dominance. Sisko felt his breath catch. This was the moment the prophets had engineered. Thanos rejecting the Dominion's offer not because the Federation convinced him, but because he'd arrived at the conclusion himself. Captain Sisko, Thanos said, turning to face him fully. Your Federation's ideals are naive, impractical, and perpetually undermined by reality. Your prime directive prevents you from preventing suffering. Your diplomatic approach allows conflicts to fester for years. Your refusal to employ ruthless tactics costs millions of lives. I know, Sisko said quietly. We're not perfect. We fail constantly. And yet you persist. Thanos' expression held something that might have been respect. You maintained your principles even when they're difficult. You struggle to live up to ideals you know you'll never fully achieve. That's not weakness, it's a different kind of strength than I ever recognized. He turned back to the founders. You offer me purpose based on fear and control. The Federation offers me nothing, no guarantees, no power restoration, no validation of my past choices. But they offer it honestly, without pretense, without trying to use me. He raised the gauntlet, and both stones began to pulse with synchronized light. I reject your offer, founders. I will not be your weapon. The Jem'Hadar warriors aimed their weapons. Worf's phaser cleared its holster. Dax and O'Brien drew their weapons. The entire situation balanced on the edge of violence. You make a grave mistake, the first founder said, its voice cold as vacuum. We offered partnership. Now you've made yourself an obstacle to order. The Dominion does not tolerate obstacles. Then we have a problem, Thanos replied, and his voice carried the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds. Because I am Thanos of Titan. I have shattered moons, conquered gods, wielded the power of infinity itself. Your Ketracel white soldiers and genetic manipulation do not frighten me. Your liquid forms and collective consciousness do not intimidate me. If you wish to try forcing my compliance, you're welcome to make the attempt. The Power Stone flared, and purple energy radiated from the gauntlet. The Space Stone activated simultaneously, blue light warping reality around Thanos. Even weakened by this universe's different physics, the combined power was staggering. The entire wormhole trembled. Stop! Sisko shouted. Everyone stand down! The prophets moved between the two groups, their forms expanding to fill the space. Violence in the Celestial Temple is forbidden. The Destroyer has chosen. The founders must accept. The Sisko's test continues. All parties will withdraw. Now. The authority in their voices was absolute. The founders hesitated, clearly unwilling to challenge beings who existed outside normal reality. Slowly, they began to retreat toward their shuttle. This isn't over, Thanos, one founder said. You've made yourself an enemy of the Dominion. We will deal with you accordingly. I look forward to it, Thanos replied. It's been some time since I faced a worthy opponent. The Dominion delegation dissolved from the wormhole space, returning to their shuttle. Sisko watched on the view screen as the shuttle turned and headed back toward the Dominion fleet. Thanos remained standing, the stone's light gradually fading. He looked at the prophets. Was this your intention? To force me to choose between my past and something new? The Destroyer's choice was always free, the prophets replied. We created circumstances. The Destroyer created outcome. Understanding emerges from decision, not from observation. And the Dominion? They won't accept this rejection peacefully. No, Sisko agreed. You've just made yourself their primary target. They'll come for you, Thanos. And they won't stop until you're either captured or dead. Thanos smiled grimly. Then I suppose I'll need allies. Tell me, Captain, does your Federation accept refugees who've declared war on one of your enemies? Or is principle more important than tactical advantage? Sisko met his eyes. That depends. Are you asking for asylum, or are you planning to use us the same way the Dominion wanted to use you? I'm asking, Thanos said slowly, to learn what it means to fight for something other than my own certainty. To discover if there's a purpose beyond balance through elimination. Your prophets brought me here to be transformed, very well. I accept transformation. But I make no promises about what I'll become. The prophets smiled. The student becomes teacher. The Destroyer becomes builder. Possibilities multiply. The Emissary's test continues. And with that, reality snapped back. Sisko found himself on the Defiance Bridge, his crew at their stations, Thanos standing calmly nearby. Through the view screen, the Dominion fleet was already breaking orbit, heading back toward the Gamma Quadrant. They're leaving, Dax reported. For now. They'll be back, Sisko said. With more ships. More determination. We need to get to the station and prepare. He looked at Thanos. Welcome to the Federation, Thanos. We'll discuss the terms of your asylum when we return. But understand, if you betray us, if you return to your old ways, I will stop you. Whatever it takes. I would expect nothing less, Captain. Thanos gazed out at the stars. I came to this universe seeking validation. Instead, I found something far more valuable: uncertainty. For the first time in a millennium, I don't know what comes next. It's liberating. The Defiant turned toward home, carrying the Mad Titan toward an uncertain future. Deep Space Nine's wardroom had never felt smaller. Sisko sat at the head of the conference table, flanked by his senior staff. Thanos occupied the opposite end, his massive frame making the reinforced chair creak under his weight. Between them sat the reality of what had just occurred. The Mad Titan had rejected the Dominion, effectively declaring himself an enemy of the Alpha Quadrant's most ruthless power. Starfleet Command is displeased, Sisko said, reading the PADD in his hand. Admiral Ross wants Thanos transferred to a secure facility on Earth for comprehensive evaluation and containment. Section 31 has filed 3 separate requests for custody. And the Bajoran Provisional Government is demanding we remove him from the station immediately. Everyone wants a piece of me, Thanos observed dryly. Familiar territory. The Dominion fleet that withdrew is regrouping, Worf reported. Intelligence suggests they're gathering reinforcements from 3 sectors. Conservative estimate puts their return strength at 20 vessels minimum. 20 ships. O'Brien muttered. We can't hold against that kind of firepower, not indefinitely. We won't have to, Sisko said. Starfleet is deploying the 7th Fleet to reinforce our position. But that takes time, 72 hours minimum. He looked at Thanos. Which means we need to have a very honest conversation about what happens next. Thanos leaned back, the gauntlet resting on the table. The 2 Infinity Stones pulsed with their slow, steady rhythm. You want assurances. Guarantees that I won't become the threat everyone fears. I can't give you those, Captain. I don't know what I'm becoming in this universe. Then tell us what you do know, Dax said. The prophets showed you futures. What did you see that made you reject the Dominion? For a long moment, Thanos was silent. When he spoke, his voice carried uncharacteristic vulnerability. I saw myself leading Dominion forces to victory. Worlds falling like dominoes. The Federation reduced to scattered resistance cells within months. Perfect order imposed across the Alpha Quadrant. He paused. And I saw the aftermath. Trillions living under genetic modification, drug dependency, authoritarian control. The founders reshaping entire species to fit their vision of stability. It was everything I claimed to fight against in my own universe. Suffering delayed, not prevented. Control masquerading as balance. You finally saw your own crusade from the outside, Bashir said quietly. Recognized what you'd become. Yes. Thanos met the doctor's eyes. I told myself the snap was mercy. Instant, painless, necessary. But the Dominion showed me the truth, that imposing your vision on unwilling populations, no matter how benevolent you believe it to be, is simply tyranny with better marketing. Kira's expression softened slightly. Then you understand why we fight them. Why we're willing to die rather than submit. I understand the principle. I'm still learning to value it over efficiency. Thanos gestured at the station around them. Your Federation is inefficient, Major. Your democratic processes are slow. Your Prime Directive prevents interventions that could save millions. Your commitment to individual rights allows dangerous elements to operate freely. By every metric I once used to measure civilization, your system should have collapsed centuries ago. And yet here we are, Sisko said. Still standing. Still exploring. Still growing. Yes. That's what the prophets wanted me to see. That resilience comes from diversity, strength from choice, sustainability from adaptation rather than control. Thanos' gauntlet hand clenched. My stones are adapting to this universe's physics. Growing stronger daily. Within weeks, perhaps months, they'll achieve full resonance. When that happens, I'll wield power comparable to what I possessed in my original reality. The room went silent. Every officer present understood the implications. Thanos, at full power, could reshape reality itself. Make planets disappear. Bend space and time to his will. The Mad Titan, unleashed in the Star Trek universe, would be unstoppable. "What will you do with that power?" Sisko asked, his voice carefully neutral. "I don't know." Thanos' honesty was almost shocking. "In my universe, I never questioned my purpose. I knew with absolute certainty that I was right, that my crusade was necessary, that any sacrifice was justified. That certainty is gone now. The prophets stripped it away when they showed me possible futures." "Good," Odo said bluntly. "Certainty makes monsters. Doubt makes people think before they act. Constable, you rejected the great link to maintain your individuality. You chose uncertainty over the comfort of collective consciousness." Thanos studied the changeling with interest. "Do you ever regret that choice?" "Every day," Odo admitted. "But I regret the alternative more. The Founder's unity comes at the cost of everything that makes existence meaningful: personal relationships, individual growth, the messy complexity of being separate and distinct." He shifted in his chair. "You're facing a similar choice, Thanos. You can cling to your old certainty, or you can embrace the uncertainty of learning to exist without absolute conviction." "Philosophy from a security chief," Thanos said, but his tone carried respect. "This universe continues to surprise me. Here's what I propose," Sisko said, drawing everyone's attention. "Thanos, you're granted provisional asylum on Deep Space Nine. You'll have quarters, limited freedom of movement, and access to our database and educational resources. In exchange, you'll work with our science teams to help us understand the Infinity Stones and how they're adapting to our universe." "And when the Dominion returns with 20 ships?" Thanos asked. "You'll help defend this station." Sisko's voice was firm. "Not because we're using you as a weapon, but because you've chosen to stand with us. The difference matters." "Does it?" Thanos challenged. "The Dominion dies either way. Their ships burn. Their soldiers are killed. How is my choice to fight alongside you morally superior to their choice to recruit me?" "Because you can walk away," Kira said. "Anytime. We won't chain you, drug you, genetically compel you. If you decide defending this station violates your principles, you can leave. The Jem'Hadar don't have that option. That's the difference." Thanos considered this. Choice. Agency. Free will. Your Federation is obsessed with these concepts. Because they're the foundation of everything we believe. Sisko replied. "You came from a universe where you wielded absolute power. Here, you're learning to exist with others who won't simply obey your vision. It's uncomfortable, I know. But it's also the only way we've found to build something that lasts, not through control, but through cooperation. Cooperation requires trust," Thanos observed. "Do you trust me, Captain Sisko?" "No," Sisko said honestly. "But I'm willing to give you the chance to earn it. The prophets sent you here for a reason. I don't fully understand it yet, but I know that knee-jerk rejection or blind acceptance are both wrong answers. So we take the middle path. Cautious cooperation, mutual observation, genuine attempt at understanding. And if I fail? If the stones restore my full power and I decide your Federation's inefficiency is intolerable? Then I'll stop you," Sisko said simply. "I've faced gods, fought time travelers, negotiated with beings who exist outside reality. You're powerful, Thanos, but you're not invincible. Especially not here, in a universe whose rules you're still learning." For a long moment, Thanos stared at Sisko. Then, slowly, he extended his unarmored hand across the table. "Very well, Captain. I accept your provisional asylum. I will defend this station when the Dominion returns. And I will attempt to learn what it means to exist without absolute certainty guiding my actions. Sisko stood and grasped Thanos' hand. The Mad Titan's grip was carefully controlled, strong enough to demonstrate his power, restrained enough to show his willingness to coexist. It was, Sisko reflected, a perfect metaphor for the arrangement they'd just made. Meeting adjourned. Sisko said. Worf, tactical preparations. I want every defensive system online and optimized. Dax, coordinate with Starfleet. I want to know exactly when the 7th Fleet arrives. Chief, work with Thanos and our science teams on understanding those stones. Everyone else, standard duty rotations but maximum readiness. As the officers filed out, Bashir approached Thanos. I'd like to continue our medical examinations if you're willing. Understanding your physiology might help us develop better defensive strategies, not against you. He added quickly, but working with your unique biology. You want to study me? Thanos said. Understandable. Very well, Doctor. I'll submit to your examinations. Perhaps understanding how I'm adapting to this universe will help me understand what I'm becoming. After everyone departed, Sisko stood alone in the wardroom, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a Dominion fleet was gathering. Section 31 was plotting. Starfleet Command was debating. And on his station, a being who'd committed universal genocide was learning to question his own certainty. The prophets had called this a test. Sisko was beginning to understand that it wasn't just a test of whether the Federation could handle Thanos. It was a test of whether Thanos could handle the Federation. Whether absolute conviction could transform into something more flexible, more human, more capable of growth. Benjamin. Cassidy Yates appeared in the doorway, his wife's expression concerned. I heard what happened. Are you all right? Sisko pulled her into an embrace. I just granted asylum to someone who killed half his universe. The Dominion is coming to destroy us. And I have no idea if I made the right choice. That's what makes it the right choice, Cassidy said. If you were certain, you'd be thinking like Thanos used to. Doubt means you're still considering all the possibilities, still willing to be wrong. The prophets are using me again. Using all of us. I hate when they do this. They sent you a monster to teach him to be something else. Cassidy observed. That's either the cruelest test imaginable, or the most hopeful. Maybe both. Sisko kissed her forehead. I need to write a report for Starfleet. It's going to be the strangest first contact documentation in Federation history. Good. Let them read about how their emissary granted asylum to a mass murderer, and is now hoping philosophy and starship combat will somehow transform him into an ally. She smiled. Just another day on Deep Space Nine. As Cassidy departed, Sisko returned to his ready room and began composing the report. Outside his window, the station bustled with activity. Bajoran civilians returning to their quarters, Starfleet personnel reinforcing defensive positions, cargo vessels departing before the expected battle. And somewhere in the science labs, Thanos of Titan was allowing Federation doctors and engineers to study the Infinity Stones, learning their secrets, understanding how power from another universe was adapting to this reality's rules. The Dominion would return. That was certain. What happened when they did? Whether Thanos would prove ally or threat, whether the Federation's principles would survive contact with his philosophy, whether the Prophet's test would be passed or failed, all of that remained uncertain. For the first time in his crusade across two universes, Thanos didn't know what came next. And standing on the threshold of the unknown, facing the possibility of transformation or destruction, he discovered something he never expected to feel again. Hope. The battle for Deep Space Nine would come. The Dominion fleet would arrive with overwhelming force, determined to capture or kill the being who'd rejected their vision of order. The 7th Fleet would race to reinforce the station, knowing they might arrive too late. And in the center of it all, Thanos would make a choice, not predetermined, not inevitable, but genuinely free. Would he fight alongside the Federation, defending principles he was only beginning to understand? Would he face the Dominion alone, a refugee's last stand against the Empire that wanted to use him? Or would he discover a third path, something neither his old crusade nor his new teachers had anticipated? The prophets existed outside time. They'd already seen every possible outcome, every branching future, every consequence of Thanos' passage through the wormhole. But they kept those visions to themselves, allowing corporeal beings the dignity of choosing their own destinies. Captain Benjamin Sisko had learned to live with uncertainty, to make difficult choices without perfect information, to uphold principles even when they were costly. Now he'd granted asylum to someone who represented the antithesis of everything the Federation believed, and in doing so, had created the possibility for transformation. Thanos of Titan had destroyed half his universe in pursuit of balance. In this new reality, he was learning that true balance came not from elimination, but from the chaotic interplay of free beings choosing their own paths. Whether that lesson would take root or whether old certainties would reassert themselves remained to be seen. The celestial temple connected two quadrants, two realities, two philosophies. What emerged from that connection? Whether wisdom or catastrophe, cooperation or conflict, evolution or regression, would be written by choices not yet made, by battles not yet fought, by transformations not yet completed. In the darkness between stars, the prophets watched, and waited, and withheld judgment, because the test wasn't over. It had only just begun. Live long and prosper. Hit the subscribe button for more interesting stories. Thank you for watching.